It is 6 o'clock. I will call this City of International Falls Truth and Taxation and Public Hearing and Input Meeting to order. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Please note that Councillor Wagner is not in the room, but he is online with us. However, you can't see him now with the presentation that we're about to give. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss with the taxpayers and the residents of International Falls how we are spending the tax dollars that we have asked for through next year's budget. With that being said, we have a presentation by our finance officer, Emma Rudd. She's going to be walking us through that. Afterwards, the council will be able to ask questions of Emma, and then after that, we will definitely be taking public input and comments, and then we will close the meeting, and we'll go back to our city council meeting. Emma, please come forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Drobe and Council. So just want to welcome you to our Truth and Taxation public hearing for December 2nd, where we'll be discussing, like you said, the City of International Falls 2025 budget and tax levy. So essentially the purpose of a Truth and Taxation public hearing and input meeting, the Minnesota Department of Revenue outlines that we are required by state statute as a city over 500 in population to hold a truth and taxation hearing. And Cushing County, acting as the taxation entity, sends out the parcel specific notices. So you should have received a notice sometime between November 11th and November 24th, outlined by state statute, indicating what your proposed taxes are as indicated by the various taxing jurisdictions, your city, your county, your school district, and what those are proposed to be based on what each of the entities have set as their preliminary proposed budgets and levies for the 2025 year. The purpose of this meeting, as we explained, is to discuss the 2025 budget, discuss the 2025 City of International Falls tax levy, and then seek questions and public input. We are not here to discuss anything to do with valuations, although I will touch a little bit on how valuations play a role in your taxes. The focus of this meeting is not on property valuations. In essence, in order to have any sort of dispute or conversation about how your properties are valued, that conversation needs to happen with the Cushing County Assessor's Office. And if need be, the Cushing County Board acting as the Board of Equalization. Those notices go out in the spring, and then the meetings are held in June of each year. So by the time you get your actual proposed tax statements, it's far too late to dispute anything as it relates to your actual valuation. So I just want to make that very clear. So I just want to outline a little bit about how the City of International Falls budget process and timeline works, just to help the public get a little bit of a better understanding of how the City of International arrived to where we're at today. So in June of each year, the financial audit is finalized and adopted for the prior year financials. And then by mid-July, department heads and partnership agencies start to receive documentation from myself in order to begin compiling their budget requests for the upcoming year. So in July of 24, they start getting documentation from myself as it relates to the 2025 budgets. And then in August through September, we hold public budget and finance meetings, which the Budget and Finance Committee is made up of the entirety of the City Council. And I've listed the dates. We hold those meetings. We post those on our website. We post them on our bulletin boards. We welcome people to attend, but we go through in detail departmental budgets with supervisors. They explain their needs, their wants, explain why their budget looks like it does. And obviously those are just the public meetings. Those don't include all of the times that I spend with the supervisors individually preparing their budgets and working with them, asking questions, working with Administrator Bergstrom, clarifying points before we bring it to the council. And then by the time we get to September, we're kind of starting to kind of get a little bit more finalized. We're seeing the bigger picture. And by the end of September, we are obligated by state statute to certify a preliminary tax levy. So our preliminary tax levy was certified at a special city council meeting on September 23rd, 2024. And then once the preliminary budget and levy is adopted, the preliminary levy is what it is. It can't go and be increased. So the 8% increase and the $4,235,565 levy cannot be increased after that time. And then obviously we're currently holding this truth and taxation meeting. And then we want to just essentially better inform citizens of the entirety of the process, where your monies are going. And then in the future, we are scheduled to adopt our final 2025 budget and levy at the December 16th meeting. Barring any major changes, we would have to, if something majorly needed to change, we would have to hold a special meeting, but that does have to be ratified and approved and adopted before the end of the calendar year, because I have to submit that to the county as well as the state of Minnesota. Next, I just want to go over a little bit about the general property tax timeline. While none of this is actually dictated by the city of International Falls, we want to make sure that the public is well informed as to the process, because it does affect the city and its citizens. I do want to be clear in saying that the city of International Falls does not do any of the valuations. It does not create property tax statements for city residents. All property valuations are done by the Coochin County Assessor's Office, and tax statements are sent out by the Coochin County Auditor Treasurer's Office. So much of this particular timeline is actually guided by state statute and by the county's own timelines that they are under. So starting in January, the property values are actually established by the County Assessor's Office for use as next year's taxes and values. So in January of 24, values are being set for the year 2025. That's how early things start. Then we move into March. Property tax statements are mailed for the current year. So in March of 25, you should be receiving your 2025 statements for your actual taxes that have been adopted and ratified. In March or April, valuation notices get sent out from the county assessor's office based on the values that they are setting in January to basically give you a heads up. And then in May, the first half property taxes are due by May 15th. And then in June, the county assessor's office holds open book meetings. And then the county board also holds their board of equalization, whereby they listen to property owners and any property valuation disputes that they might have. So I really want to encourage you, if you get your statement in the spring, March, April, and you see it and you're like, hey, I don't feel that this valuation is justified, please reach out to them, because once you get past June, there's very little to anything that they can do. And I've had that conversation with the county assessor's office just as late as last week, and they said they welcome those conversations. So please have those conversations with them. They are the appropriate entity to have those conversations.
And I just want to break in really quick. When you get your valuation earlier in the year, there's no taxes assessed to that. That is just your the valuation of what your house is. And it isn't until we go through this process of putting together the budget that it gets assessed to the value. So you're spot on, but I wanted to make sure that that first one that you see on your valuation is legitimately just valuation. There's no taxes that are attributed to.
Right. So yeah, just to keep that in mind. So you say, hey, my house value went up by $50,000, for instance. Great. Well, you also need to keep in mind, is it justified? Is it accurate in your eyes? Because that does also impact your taxes, but they go hand in hand. And then in September, as we said, preliminary levies have to be set by September 30th. from all entities. October, the second half taxes are due by October 15th. November, the county is sending out the notices for proposed taxes for the upcoming year. And then in December, final levies must be set by all taxing authorities for the following year. So briefly, I just want to talk about the big question really people often ask is they get their proposed property tax statement each November and they say, why did my property tax amounts change? Well, there's a myriad of reasons why your property tax amounts might change, but these are some really common reasons. One is market valuations, change in the valuation of your home. That can really drive things because if your value is going up, your piece of the pie might also be going up. The amount you're assuming as your portion of the levies, whether it be city, county, school district, could be changing. Obviously, levies, as we're here to talk about the change in the levies at the various jurisdictions, county, city, school district, that can drive increases, decreases. Voter approved referendums, addition of voter approved referendums as we have a new referendum that was approved at the primary for the school district. So that also can have an impact. Non-levy revenue sources, changes in non-levy revenue sources can affect your taxes. If there's something, positive that comes our way, we might be able to not take such a big increase. Or if we don't see some sort of revenue that we were expecting to see, that burden could be passed on. Special assessments, assessed road improvements, unpaid assessed bills can affect your taxes. Debt issuances, such as if a local jurisdiction has to issue debt, bonds, etc. And then legislative changes and mandates, changes to formulas on calculations of things like homestead credits and various things that can have an impact. I'll touch on that here in a little bit on how the homestead credit is actually changing for 2025 and how that impacts you. Going on to net tax capacity. So this is a term that you probably may or may not have ever heard before, but it does actually drive a lot of things behind the scenes when calculating your property taxes. So a property's net tax capacity is actually determined by multiplying the property's taxable market value by the relevant class rate or rates. And class rates are actually set by a Minnesota state statute and they're uniform across the board. And so the biggest thing is when net tax capacity changes, it changes the makeup of the pie, as we like to call it. If net tax capacity of Koochisin County increases, it can help residents because it redistributes the tax burden. In the upcoming year, there was actually roughly $1 million in growth in the Koochisin County net tax capacity. And while I don't have specific reasons for that, it could be new growth, which is always a big help because obviously it redistributes burden, or it could also be because valuations have increased. So that's kind of a hard term to kind of get your mind wrapped around, but it does impact you in some form or fashion and how your taxes are being calculated on the backside. Next is kind of my favorite. I just really want to touch on how to read your proposed tax notice that you received in the mail. So this is actually an example of an actual property located within the city of International Falls. And obviously information's redacted, but the International Falls tax levy is actually outlined and bordered in green off to the right. And so I just really want to point out a few things on here. So first of all, in 2025, the state legislature is actually increasing the homestead market value exclusion, which is good for residents who have homes under $517,000, and they get to take advantage of that. So the exclusion is actually going from $30,400 for properties valued at $76,000 up to $38,000 for properties valued at $95,000. So and then I'll have you note that as your property increases over that $95,000 valuation, the exclusion credit actually goes down by 9% based on your home value. And so, for instance, this home is actually valued at $153,800. And so the market value exclusion for this home is actually calculated by taking the difference of their valuation, the 153,800 and the $95,000 threshold. And that difference is 58,800. You multiply it by 9%, you come up with 5292, and you subtract that from the maximum allowable amount of 38,000 to come up with the 32,708 exclusion amount. So that amount is what's actually reduced off of your estimated market value in order to get your taxable market value. And then I also want to draw your attention to the right-hand side, where I've listed the proposed property tax levies for both the city and the county, how much those were. And then the county proposed levy was, I believe, 25.2 roughly. And whereas this particular property actually saw an increase on their county taxes of 15.8% or $73.29. The city proposed levy increase was 8%, whereas this property saw an increase on their taxes of only 1.7%. And I just want everyone to understand that when a local governing body actually approves their proposed tax levy, it does not directly equate to the number that you will see as an increase on your taxes, because there are far too numerous of things that we discussed earlier that play a part in how your taxes are actually calculated. So we approved an 8% levy. This person only saw 1.7% of that. And then I also just want to draw your attention to the fact that this property also did not have a change in their estimated market value, but it did benefit from the increase in the homestead market exclusion. And it most likely benefited from the fact that the county's net tax capacity increased. So I hope the biggest takeaway from this that people get is never look at the bottom line number, educate yourself on why your taxes are going up or down. And if you receive a valuation notice in the spring and you disagree with that valuation, exercise your right to dispute it with the county at the appropriate time, listed on those notices at the open book meetings at the Board of Equalization. Because once you get to this meeting, it's too late. We are not the appropriate entity, and it's far too late to do anything for 2025 values. But keep in mind, every property is different. Yours might have gone up more than this. So I hope you can take some of the things we kind of discussed and apply it to your own proposed tax statement. Going to move a little bit quicker now, going into 2025 budget priorities. Our budget priorities include long-term planning, whether it be department-wide or citywide. We're looking at everything and trying to really plan to the long-term and our long-term needs. Next, a priority is maintaining public safety services, improving our infrastructure, and last, most importantly, focusing on sustainable budgeting for 2025 and beyond. Next is our levy breakdown. The city's proposed 2025 tax levy is $4,234,565, and it's allocated amongst 6 different municipal funds. The largest is our general government fund at 35.8%, where the bulk of our essential services are actually provided out of. Then we get to our reserve for capital outlay at 23%, our permanent improvement fund at 19.9%, our parks and rec fund at 11.5%, our library at 7.9%, and our riverfront improvement fund at 1.8%. Next, I'm going to be breaking down our general government fund expenditures, as that is our largest fund and it comprises most of our services from administration to police to fire, housing, public works. This information is mostly a summary of what you're seeing on the proposed Exhibit A that was adopted in September and included in your packet today. I'm going to start with some of our administrative operating budgets, which total $1,036,075, of which 71% is from administration, 12% is from mayor and council, 12% is city attorney, 4% is auditing, and 1% go to our boards and commissions. Next is our 2025 public safety operating budget, which totals $3,389,612, of which police comprise 64%. The fire hazmat departments comprise 26%. Building and fire code inspection comprises 9%, and the town master comprises 1%. And then I do want to make a note that we receive specifically for these types of departments. We have $205,000 budgeted in our intergovernmental revenue from state funding designated for specific portions of these police, fire, hazmat operational training budgets. So the state of Minnesota is actually what provides the funding that allows for us to have a specially designated hazmat department, and they fully fund our hazmat department in that way. Next, we have our 2025 Public Works and Facilities operating budgets, which total $2,335,330, of which 53% is comprised from the street department, 16% from our street lighting, 12% from facilities, 7% from street garage, 6% from storm sewer, 5% from engineering, and just under 1% for our shade tree. Lastly, we have our 2025 unallocated operating budgets, which total $554,889, which is oftentimes the fund that a lot of people tend to question because of the name of it. But it's just kind of the department that's strictly the misfit expenses that don't fit in any other department. 51% of this budget is allocated to the airport, 32% is allocated to tax abatement, 11% is to pay-own retiree insurances and HRA, 3% is to other unallocated, 2% is an appropriation to Citizen for Bacchus, and less than 1% in each allocations to the cemetery, senior center, and Friends Against Abuse. Next, we have our 2025 partnership agencies, and while some of these were previously touched upon in the prior unallocated operating budget slide, I wanted to make sure we had an opportunity to recognize them all in one place. In the 2025 proposed budget, we have funding designated to provide $1,000 to Friends Against Abuse, $2,000 to the Senior Center, which we are under contract with, $3,500 to Forest Hill Cemetery, $10,000 to Citizens for Bacchus AB, $32,000 to the Borderland Humane Society, for which we have a contract with, plus providing utilities and maintenance on the building as we own it, and then $281,173 to the airport. The next three items I'll have you note have no direct impact on the levy. We provide $12,000 to KCC TV from the franchise fees that are remitted to us from Midco from cable users. That money supports KCC TV, providing us the PEG Channel 7, where area events and meetings are both recorded and streamed for the public to watch. We're going to be providing the Chamber of Commerce a one-time amount of $8,000 out of our 809 EPA fund. And lastly, we are providing $20,000 to our Bronco Nagurski County Historical Museum out of our 809 fund as well. Next, we will be breaking down the 7 revenue sources that support our general fund. First, we have our largest, which is our local government aid, our LGA, at 67%. The budgeted amount of $4,937,482, which is an increase of $5,575 over 2024. Next, we have 21%, which is our property tax levy. Budgeted amount for our overall levy is $4,234,565, which is an increase of $313,654 or 8% over our 2024 levy amount. But only $1,510,204 is actually specifically allocated to our general fund. As we discussed earlier, there's percentages allocated to 5 other funds. 3% is in other intergovernmental revenue, budgeted amount of $228,000, which is an increase of $14,680 over 2024. And this is what there's 205,000 included in this specific to public safety monies. And then there's a few other odds and ends in there, but the bulk of it's for public safety related items. 3% for miscellaneous interest income. Budgeted amount of $212,000, which is an increase of $130,000 over 2024. 3% for public charges for service, budgeted amount of $205,700, which is an increase of $1,100 over 2024. 2% is for licenses and permits, budgeted amount of $165,500, which is a decrease of $6,975 over 2024. And lastly, 1% for fines and forfeitures, which is a budgeted amount of $57,000 with no change over 2024's amounts. Next, we just have a chart that we've historically shown year after year, showing our LGA and property tax trends, which we try to show every year. We did not have a large increase this year for LGA, and in most years we do not. We were very fortunate last year to get a fairly sizable increase, but it's not something we can expect from year to year. Next, we have some key factors affecting our 2025 levy. Some of the biggest reasons for increased costs include effects of inflation and rising costs on resources such as utilities, fuels, supplies. When our 2024 budget was set, the operational budgets, with the exception of salaries and some leases, were all kept at 2023 budget levels. So for context, I actually ran a comparison of just utilities within the general fund, and we are actually having to budget for a 21% increase, which amounts to $50,000 just in our general fund, which drastically impacts the levy. So you can basically think of $50,000 of your levy increase is going straight to utilities. And a big part of it's actually street lighting, the electricity that it costs to keep your street lights on. We have increases for employee wages, benefits, insurances, as well as worker compensation insurance premiums, all of which resulted in an overall net increase to the levy of $181,216. We did, however, have some savings drivers that helped the levy, which included the LGA increase of $5,575, an increase in our interest and investment revenues, and then also a reduction and reallocation of some of the requested appropriation amounts, allowing for $103,153 in savings. Next, we have our Exhibit A. Hopefully you have a copy in your hands, I'm hoping. Otherwise, I'll try to see if I can do a little Zoom action. Not sure how well I'll be able to do on this, but you can see under our general 101 fund here where my little cursor is. You can see those were the expenditures that I discussed earlier by category, going through administration all the way on to unallocated. I did not go through our non-levy budget funds, but the information is outlined in the Exhibit A. And if you want additional information, please reach out to our office and I'd be happy to get it to you. But if there are not levy dollars funding it, it has an alternative funding source. For instance, it could be our enterprise funds, like our water and sewer funds. They have utility fees that support it. For our Voyageurs National Park Fund, our 410 fund, it is supported by lease revenues. In any event, these other funds are not impacting your city levied property taxes. The bottom portion, pardon me, actually outlines some of our appropriations and then also kind of trends on levy and LGA figures from year to year. Next, we have a news release from the Minnesota Department of Revenue that explains that based on preliminary proposed levies submitted, which everyone has to submit their levy to the state of Minnesota, cities are going up on average 8.8%. Counties are going up on average 6.4%, and schools are going up on average 4.4%. And these are all average based on the entirety of the state of Minnesota. Next is what I thought was some helpful information of different options for property tax relief that you can look into, such as the state property tax refund and the senior citizen property tax deferral program. These are just two of the more common ones, but I do know that there are other ones out there, like options for disabled veterans, for instance. So please look into these things if you need additional assistance, and find out what you might qualify for by checking out some of this information. And then lastly, before we get to questions, I just want to briefly explain what we've been doing since the proposed levy and budget was set in September. So we've continued to work and look at other areas and opportunities for cuts, whether it be in 2025 or in future years. And I appreciate everyone's willingness to keep digging. I do know there was a development, I believe it was the end of October, brought to the November Committee of the Whole. And it sounds like the Airport Commission was amending its budget request for 2025 for both the city and the county local share, due to some revenues that arrived earlier in the year that they're going to be using to offset their 612 airport operational budget for the local share portions. So this will actually, if we take this into consideration and apply this information, it would actually reduce our levy by $77,423, taking it from an 8% levy increase down to a 6.02% levy increase. All in all, I would say that there is a strong likelihood, based on conversations we've had at committee level, that our 2025 city levy will come down from 8%. And just given this information on the airport alone, as well as some other things that I'm working on with department heads and the city administrator on, I believe all in all, it's been a productive budget season. I thank everyone for their patience. And first, we'll see if the mayor and council have questions, comments. Otherwise, then we can open up to the public.
First of all, I have to say, I've been on council for 10 years. That is the most in-depth conversation we have ever had on the budget. And I want to say thank you to you, the city administrator, and all of the staff that has put in time, because that is legitimately the best presentation we have ever had for the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're one step away from a standing ovation. So, I don't have any questions. I do have one comment that, the one thing that, Emma had spoke about is there was, some monies that are gonna be, reallocated, reused, used differently at the airport. It is gonna drop the levy for both the city and the county. And we have had conversations at that council, and I do believe that it is our intention to move the levy from the 8% down to the 6.02 percent by the end of the year, which gets us almost 2%, 2.5% under the average for cities in Minnesota. A lot of that ended up coming to the department heads. We did kind of stronghold them last year, and we kept them at their 2023 budget numbers to get to 2024. So we've been operating this year based on the 2023 numbers, which Emma had pointed out. And we kind of missed, we cut projects and programs that we would be doing this year, and it kind of hurt the city in some capacity, because now with those costs of utilities and stuff, we did raise it to pick up some of those utilities. And when we did that, that's when we got to the 8%. With that being said, we did cut some of the programs down a little bit, some of the projects that we had to move forward, but we didn't think that it was safe or fair for the city to cut everything. So we wanted to make sure that all of our other organizations that we work with, whether it was KEDA, the airport, anyone that we have that we're working with, was able to cut as well. And I'm very thankful that the airport was able to come down, and that ended up being 2% loss for our budget. So greatly appreciate all of the department heads that got us to where we're at today. And I have nothing else to say. I will hand it off to the council if they have any thoughts or concerns on the budget.
Well, I'm really proud of what the city council did in getting it down. It's not easy to cut anything or whatever. You want best of the best, but we did it. We did our job and you can see it. And so I want to thank fellow councilmen and the mayor for working hard to get this down along with the staff. I mean, you can look at it, 6%. It's a heck of a deal, I think, for all that we handle, all that we do. And I could attest to that. So I've been on here 4 years now, working towards another 4 years, and I'm proud to be on the city council.
You didn't get to stand in the brief.
Well, that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
That's okay.
Please, Pete.
No, I agree with Mike. Everybody, we all know it's a hard process and we worked well together in the city staff and I think we did as best we could where we're at.
Oh.
A big thank you to all the department heads. Betty and all the administration that worked together to come to this. Thank you.
And Tim, do you have anything to add?
Wonderful presentation. Thanks, Emma. Very, very informative. And thanks to all the department heads and the rest of the counselors. Really good work.
All right. Thank you, Emma, and then we'll go to public comment. And Emma, be ready to answer all the questions.
Hi, Susan Wadiga, 107 Park Avenue. And I just wanted clarification. So the 77,000 that the airport is now contributing, that's going to be taken off of the levy then? So instead of 8%, I'll go down to the 6 point something.
6.02.
Okay,
Yes.
I just want to make sure I was understanding that correctly.
It's
So,
roughly 40,000 is 1% of the levy.
okay. And I'm going to say the same thing. Thank you, Emma. That was really informative with the different information on here to understand the process and different things like that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Please come forward and state your name.
My name is Joseph Cantor. I'm a
I
local.
need an address as well. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm from 1607 13th Avenue West, International Falls. I live in the Stenberg addition. And I'm here tonight to talk to you guys about the projects that we've cut and the projects that are going on. And I think, like, you're right, that we should switch and move our money around a little bit to cover some of the projects that are been abused and haven't been taken care of in a long, long time. Like over in the West End, there's projects over there, streets over there and stuff that haven't been fixed in over 30 years. And when 30 years goes by, you're bound to have a lot of issues. I mean, sure, they do maintenance on them and stuff, but you know, we were entitled to this 3 years ago. And all of a sudden the project has gone backwards and now we're going to wait another year. And then another thing is, like, a lot of people are taking trips going to Laughlin on these bigger planes and they go to the airport. They get to the airport, the plane comes in, there's 180 people to get on board that airplane and it's full. And when these people go in through that little guard shack right there, they go inside because they got to go through all their stuff. When they get that all done, they can't go back into the local public bathroom, which is on the other side of the glass. They have to go into a certain little stall bathroom, and a lot of people can't use it because there's not enough room in it. The toilet's too small in the airport for that many people. So that makes a big problem for us people that live here. And you know, you got all the Canadians coming over and we got all of us over here. And it's just like, why couldn't that have been fixed many years ago? Why couldn't they design that a little better? And I got, there's some issues. I mean, I'm just pointing out a few. I'm sure a lot of people do. But there is things that could be well taken care of a lot better than what they are right now. Everybody's looking at, hey, we got a new jail coming in and we got a lot of stuff happening. That's all to the good of the city. But some things are being neglected. And those small things are from the local people in International Falls that deserve that repair work or whatever on their streets. I think we're being forgotten in some parts of town here. And that's why I'm bringing it up today is I don't want to forget that. So I'm bringing it up to you guys to come up with an answer for that.
Number one, I thank you, and we will pass the information about the bathroom to the airport commission. Secondly, I would highly urge you to meet with Ted Brokaw, our Public Works Department. He has a list of the projects that we're going to be doing moving forward. And that is one of the things that we are actively trying to work on is the sewer, streets, and water. A couple of years back, what we did is we used a 1% sales tax to be able to mill and overlay a lot of our property in the community. But now we're doing the stuff that's going to be a lot more expensive and it's going to be smaller projects, but that's just the nature of the deal. But I do agree with you wholeheartedly. Our local streets from 3rd Street all the way to 11th Street, Stenberg Edition. We know the areas that need to be worked on. But it comes down to money, and we definitely have a long-term plan to be able to work these projects. And I highly urge you to meet with Ted Brokaw before you leave.
Okay, and one other thing is I was told by the county, talked to the county about, like used to have a bridge out by the cemetery in Yerksburg there. And I brought it up and they said, no, that's not city, that's county. And you can't take it up with the mayor. That's with the county. And I said, no, I think the mayor of the town should be able to say something about this and try to get some of our things back. Like they said, oh, you got to go talk to the mayor Rainier about that city beach, or talk, the city beach. We wanted to put a new dock in there at one time because the old dock got run out, got ruined, and they had some lawsuits against it at one time. And that's, when we were kids, we used to go out that city beach out there. I think we're forgetting about the kids too a little bit. I think city beach should be updated a little bit and build a new dock. And I think that the Ericsburg where the cemetery was, I think she should put a new walkway through there with a bridge so people can go through there. And just some things that we've forgotten in the past that are gone now. I think they should come back.
I definitely the conversation about City Beach, I think that's something that the council could look at and see what we can do moving forward. But as for the Ericsburg stuff, I mean, obviously that's outside of our jurisdiction, but we do own City Beach. So that is something that we would look at to improve our own property. Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
So thank you. Thank
All
you
right.
for your time.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Name's Holly Takamoto. And I live at 1501 4th Avenue East. And my question is, I see on our taxes, there's 2 levies for the school district. How are the levies passed? We are new here.
They were passed on an election during the primary. And the school district had put out information. Again, they had a campaign, they did a mailer and stuff, and it was a voter levy, a voter referendum.
Just now?
Just this year, yes.
Oh. So there's 2 on our taxes.
Yeah, there was one a couple years back that went to the voters, and then we
Okay.
just had another one with 2 potential referendums this year.
Okay, but that wasn't on the main vote when he went to vote for the president,
No, it was on the.
because it was not on there.
No, it was on the primary. That's the way they set it up.
Is it always like that?
The jurisdiction has that right. It was.
Okay, because we didn't get a notice for that or anything as a new resident.
Was in August,
It was what?
in August.
Yeah, you would have to, and again, that would be a school district
Okay,
one.
so I guess my question is, how long do these levies last? Why is it, I mean, does one quit and then the other one starts? Or how do they work? Because there's two on there right now. Yeah, yeah.
It's in your packet. I'll find it.
Okay. Okay. I will go to them and ask. I just want to know if one ends. Because we came from Sherburne. And when we voted for when the old one was done for the new one to start. So there was never two on our,
Yeah,
On
These
our-
are, excuse me, these are two different referendums,
okay,
and one will. The first one, I don't know how long, I want to say 10 years, I'm not sure,
okay,
but that will end, and then
Been
this.
about 10 years.
for both of them each?
Well, at least one of them for sure
Yeah.
is 10.
Okay,
That'd be the first one, then the one that just was passed. I'm not sure how long it is, but like to get the exact answers, it would be.
Yeah.
To the school.
Okay.
Or you could just call the office to it after go meeting, I'm sure.
oh, at the school, you mean?
yeah, you would easily just be able to call them.
Was that the
and
superintendent's office you'd call that?
Superintendent or administration, either one
Okay.
could be able to help you. And the date, I did find it for you. It's December 16th. And it's at the high school cafeteria at 6 p.m.
Oh, the meeting?
for the school district. Correct.
Okay, I will check that out. Thank
Great,
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it
Thank
and
you.
appreciate you guys.
It's glad to have you back in town.
Oh, thank you. It's been 40 years.
Yeah, well, I would figure
It's
it.
good to
yeah.
be home.
Any other questions or concerns or comments? All right, with, at this time then, we will, close this meeting. And again, we're going to be having, another meeting. It is the intention of the council to lower the 8% tax levy down to 6.02%. That is the game plan that we have right now. But until we vote on that, I can't say for certain, but I can tell you in every meeting that we've had, that has been the conversation that we have moving forward. So, there will be, our budget and levy will be approved at our next regular city council meeting, which would be December 16th. Betty, do we have a game plan for additional conversation on this budget at our Monday committee of the whole meeting?
Monday, 12/9, which is December 9th, at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting right prior to the committee of the whole.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So, with that being said, I will, close this meeting and we will reopen our city council meeting. Thank you all for joining us. You're welcome to stay. We have some,
Very
city
exciting.
street projects coming up with Ted Brokaw. Are we good, Todd? All right.